A boss be rising, BBTV's igniting, turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel roads to the neon dreams, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss be rising, sky ain't even the ceiling, when she hits go live, everybody feels it. She's the queen of the comeback.
What is up, my ninjas? All right, y'all, welcome back. It's Ask a Bee. Freak Out Friday is different today. Sorry. I need my music, y'all. Today we're doing something a little different, but honestly, something that feels like it should have happened on this show a long time ago. And it did. It just didn't stick with me, I guess. You know, we all go through our little journey here. Let's call it a journey, so I'll be nice. But we all go through our little journey here on YouTube, and we can't figure out quite what it is that we want to do. And let me tell you, my shorts are rocking it. And I do mean rocking it, y'all, because that's me, rock and roll B. So I'm going to try and incorporate more music into my Ask a Bee sessions, because as much as I love the messy AITA, here's the thing. Nobody else seems to love it. So I'm trying to fix my stuff to where everybody likes my stuff. So if you've been around this channel for a while, you already know music has always been a part of the DNA here. Rock stories, art deep dives, or artist deep dives, the history behind the songs we all grew up with. Look, that's where a lot of our conversations tend to drift away. So today we're leaning into that. Instead of the usual AIT stories, we're opening the door to a different kind of question, okay? The kind music fans have been arguing about for decades, the kind of questions that show up in forums and comment sections, barroom debates, and long road trips when someone pulls or puts the right song on the radio and suddenly everybody has an opinion, right? Today, we're looking at women in rock because this is Women's History Month. And you know, I love my girls. And, you know, just where they were in their life, where they weren't, and why that might be. Because when you really start looking at the history of rock and metal, something interesting pops up pretty quickly. A lot of the biggest bands are male dominated, but at the same time, some of the most powerful voices and influential figures in music history are women. So, how does that work? Why do we see so many female singers and bassists in mixed bands? Why has rock and metal historically had fewer women compared to other genres? And you know what? Who really deserves the title of the greatest female rock singer of all time? I got a few. Maybe the biggest question of all, who were the women who helped build rock long before the industry started giving them credit for it? That's what we're digging into today. Just like our AITA specials, we've got panels, comments, theories, and a whole lot of room for conversation. Some of these questions came straight from music discussions online, mostly Reddit. I like my Reddit. Share me out. And some of the answers might surprise you. So if you're a rock fan, a music history nerd, or just someone who loves a good debate, you're in the right place today. So let's get into this. And while I am loading this up, may I ask you please to hit that like button. Consider subscribing and becoming a member, because, you know, that's how we roll around here. And I do mean roll. If you're a YouTube content creator, you know exactly what I'm talking about. All righty. So let's start with this one. Okay. Let me move over, this way. Okay. Why are most females in rock bands either singers or bassists? There's a question. That's a good question, right? You go, baby girl. I love you too, Nita. I love you bunches. That's my aunt right there, y'all. Probably my most favorite aunt in the world, too. I know she heard me say that. She knows it's true. All right, so I pulled this story off of Reddit because I thought it was, good. So let me push that little tidbit out right there. Now, my friend, female, and I, male, were having a discussion the other day about whole and realized how pretty much every rock band with one female member tends to have her as a singer or a bassist. Now, the best examples for singers would be bands like No Doubt, there you go, Blondie, Paramore, Evanescence, My Bloody Valentine, both of whom now have a female bassist, and Garbage. You know, you've seen those on my page channel, that thing too. While for more well-known female bassists, you get bands like Smashing Pumpkins, Sonic, Youth, Pixies, Talking Heads, Black Flag. The singers make more sense to me considering men and women have very different vocal ranges a lot of the times. So certain bands may have styles more suited for women to sing, but the bass part is kind of baffling considering how bass can be notoriously for people with smaller hands. Why are there so many prominent female bassists as compared to guitarists or even keyboardists? Okay, so the singer position makes sense historically because the front person is the visual identity of the band, right? Think about Gwen Stefani or Deborah Harry or Haley Williams. The voice becomes the brand, right? Bass might actually be more welcoming in mixed bands because guitar has historically been treated like the lead hero, right? Instrument in a rock culture, right? It's the lead. It always is. I mean, when you think about people like Eddie Van Halen, when you hear that, okay, you hear Van Halen, that's the first person you think of. Okay, there's two of them in there, Eddie and Alex. So that's two Van Halens we're talking about. But Eddie was the one with the guitar. Did you know that he started on the drums? Yeah, no, he's much better at tapping that bass or that guitar than he is those drums, right? Fun fact. Listen, bass players often enter bands through rhythm sections or music programs. Let's see here. Tina Weymouth, okay, from Talking Heads, is a famous example. She learned bass after the band formed because they needed someone to fill that role. Crazy, right? Darcy, I'm going to ruin this name. I just know it. Retsky, I think is how you pronounce that, from Smashing Pumpkins, and Kim Deal from Pixies are other huge examples where the bassist becomes a defining part of the band's sound, right? And we all know that when it comes to the band, the bass and the drum is the heartbeat, right? And mostly the bass, because it's usually the drums keeping up with the bass, so the bass can keep up with, you know what I'm saying, right? All right, so here's an edit. I know there are several great all-girl bands, but I'm talking more about mixed bands who most of the time only have one female member, and how in that case, she almost always is the singer or the guitarist. I can't think of many mixed bands where the drummer or the guitarist is female and the other members are male. I beg to differ. Skillet. Period. You got, well, I think she's the bassist, but you also have a female drummer. And you know what? Let's not forget how many people love Heart, right? There's another female guitarist. Yes, her sister sings, but she plays guitar and sings. You know, that's actually an interesting pattern in rock history. When women did break into bands early on, it was often through singing roles first before instrument roles became more visible. Y'all thinking I'm denying female drummers or guitarists exist? No. I know there are several talented women who play other instruments than bass, but pretty much all of the examples people are mentioning are in all female bands or bands where the female lead singers also plays guitar, which reinforces my point. Okay, so Joan Jett is a great example of a guitarist and a front woman. Nancy Wilson, like I said, from Heart, is another major guitar player in rock. Okay. Let's see. Here's another edit. I dare someone to name a band where the singer and the bassist are men and the guitarist, drummer are women. Triple Dare. I just said it, skillet, right? Okay. That lineup is actually extremely rare historically, obviously, which tells us something about how rock bands formed culturally. Culturally, it's it's a big $5 word. Y'all excuse me. All right, so part of this may come down to access. For decades, young boys were encouraged to pick up a guitar, while girls were more often encouraged towards singing or playing piano, right? And the other side of visibility, if the role models you see are singers, that's the role you imagine yourself in, right? Also, to think about that, going on that same subject, the landscape is changing. Okay. More female guitarists, drummers, and producers are emerging now than at any time in rock history, right? I'm sorry, I have a rogue hair again. And I got my Beyonce going because I'm an old lady and I have to have my air. All right, we're going to go with the next panel here. Go away here. All right, so they had some comments on that one, of course. And the first commenter says, I don't know, but I can confirm even my friends in bands were either singers or bassists. Well, there you go. One in particular was a bassist, but later moved on to singer. The more I think on it, the more I agree. And now I'm questioning why too. I get it. That actually mirrors what happened in a lot of bands. Someone starts as the bassist because the band needs one, then eventually moves to the vocals or songwriting roles too. And there's a lot of people out there that don't even play an instrument and still write songs and sing. And I get the whole point of this is about women in rock, but you have to understand what they said before. Yes, women were taught to sing. We were taught to use our voices. And then when you stop and you think about it, there's a lot of metal out there that they're not really singing. They're just hollering, screaming, grunging, And let me tell you something. I've heard quite a few women that can do the same dang thing. Okay. Yeah. So it's just been, I think, more up until now, a cultural thing where, you teach your children, don't make that kind of noise when you're singing, right? Because when I was in school and I was in choir and, all those private lessons and everything, anytime I ever tried to growl a little bit, pull a little grunge out of my voice, I was always told not to. That's what boys do. Look, y'all, I'm old, okay? I don't think they do that now. I hope they don't do that now because I know a lot of women out there that can really, really sing some rock. Me being one of them, okay? All right, second comment. Why has nobody mentioned Hart and Nancy Wilson on guitar? See, we've already mentioned those, but I get your point. Nancy Wilson is one of the most respected female guitarists in rock, okay? Hart is a fascinating example because Ann Wilson handled powerhouse vocals while Nancy handled guitar and songwriting. I mean, come on. Guitar and songwriting. She was not only writing the words, she was writing the music. And that's a rare commodity, I think. That's why you keep your sister with you in a rock band. It's crazy, but I wish I had a sister to have been able to do that. Or even I wish my mother had been more outward going with her voice because she had a great voice and I knew we could sing together. She was a country girl. I grew up on country. I'm from Texas, y'all. You get it. But when we sang the Judds, it was like we were standing in their place on stage. So, third comment. Wilson sisters are considered Hart with male supporting musicians. Okay. Fleetwood Mac, mixed couples band. Very true. Talking point. Here is, look, Fleetwood Mac is a great example of mixed creative dynamics. Stevie Nicks and Christine McVie both become major songwriting voices in the band, right? Here's the thing. They had all this great stuff to write about because they were both going through divorces. Both situations were going through divorces, and they still kept it together. How do you manage that? Y'all go watch that episode because it was good. But Christine McVie, okay, was also a keyboardist, which breaks the singer or bassist pattern a little bit, right? At least I think so. So some bands, they evolve into mixed collaborations over time rather than starting that way. Women, they entered these bands, or when they entered these bands, they often reshaped the entire sound, not just filled a role. They may have started in one place, but that there's proof out there. I mean, look at Janis Joplin. You start in one spot and you end up in the front. And that's the real rocking women out there. You got to have a certain kind of, you know what, I'm just going to say, you got to have a set of balls to get out front and go past them men, because that's where it dominates. Men dominate the rock world, especially the metal world. And, to hear somebody like Flyleaf go out there, oh, honey, Flyleaf, yeah, baby, okay? Fourth comment, I have a theory that quality bassists are less common with so many competing to be lead guitarists. So a woman could have an easier time getting job security in a band by being a great bassist. I mean, that's a strong theory. Guitarists are everywhere in rock scenes, but solid bass players are always in demand. And I'm not going to say that's because it's the easiest instrument to play, because it's not. Like I said before, you're the heartbeat. You and the drums, you keep the rhythm. The rhythm is the bass, If your floor is out from under you, you can't sing a song. You can't play the guitar. Plain and simple. Bass anchors the rhythm with the drums, right? A great bassist becomes indispensable to a band. Kim Deal from Pixies is a perfect example. Her bass playing and backing vocals shape the band's identity. I have a favorite bass player. Okay. I do. And, well, I have a couple, but Primus, y'all, come on. Don't nobody listen to Primus and think that ain't, that's a hell of a bass player, right? I don't know any other woman that can play the bass anywhere close to that other than this one, to tell you the truth. Her bass playing and backing vocals, it shaped the band's identity. And if you haven't heard the Pixies, you need to go listen. Fifth comment, Karen Carpenter was a drummer. Oh, now we are talking about my age group. Honey. I realize it's not a rock band, but still, I think she had one of the purest and greatest voice ever. I agree. And let me tell you something. She had the best name, Karen. For anybody knows that was my mama's name. And you know what? I don't even care about the jokes, because yes, my mother would have owned the name Karen. You better believe it. Okay, so Karen Carpenter was actually an incredible drummer before she became known primarily as a singer. That's what she wanted to do. She liked hiding behind the drums. Her drumming style was respected by other professional drummers in the industry. She was amazing. Women have always played every instrument in music, okay? The difference is often who gets visibility. Rock history sometimes highlights the front person while the instrumental contributions get overlooked. Look, as more young women see guitarists, drummers, and producers who look like them, those patterns continue to shift. It's true. It's true. Alrighty. And to get further into this, because yes, I have more, of course. We've only been here 20 minutes. I do my hour faithfully. I try to. You'll have to forgive me when I have to do a replay, because, life, We all got life, right? Alrighty, here we go. So, why are women so rare in rock and metal? That's a good question. That's usually on the top of my head. Seriously. Excuse me, sweet tea time. Yes, there's honey in it. All right. So I listen to a lot of rock music, and I think it's not a secret that most successful bands in rock and also metal are male. Agreed. As a woman myself, sometimes it kind of frustrates me that there are so much more male rock musicians out there who are famous. I mean, tell me a famous female rock star from today. Yeah, they're rare. Hello, Hellstorm. I can do that. And it what is always, I just said one, Flyleaf. Shall I go on? Garbage. Come on. And it was always used to be like that. In the past, radio stations refused to play more women in rock because they already had one. In general, I think it is much more difficult for female singers to get really famous. Oh, I agree with that. Most female famous pop singers act more like strippers and do the whole relations sales thing for it. Y'all, I'm careful with my words. Okay, no F bombs here, and we don't use the S word or the C word, or you know what? Look at the list. They have to be just pretty and skinny and all those things. Hello, Tay Tay. I, sorry, I guess we all remember the thing about Keisha or Kesha. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but especially in rock and metal, this is a whole new level. I mean, because both rock stars are male and women are often represented only as groupies or nice looking objects in their music videos. Why is that so? Mm. Sorry. We had hashtag me too for actors and directors. Why has nothing like that happened to the music industry? Good questions. Even after the whole shit about Dr. Luke. Yeah, I said shit. We're grown adults here. And where is that female equivalent to Aerosmith, Nickelback, or whoever? Agreed. Okay, there's two things I agree with you on this point. Look, rock historically grew out of blues and garbage or garage bands. I got garbage on the brain. I love the band. Okay, where young men were forming bands together in basements and garages, right? The culture naturally created male dominated scenes. Radio used to literally limit female artists. It's true. Program directors would say, "We already have one woman on the playlist." It's true. It used to be like that. Not so much anymore, thankfully. I should move this out of the way. Sorry. So, you know, image expectations were also different. Male rock stars could look messy, wild, rebellious, wear makeup. Female artists were often pushed towards pop, where appearance mattered more. My favorite example of this whole situation, Janis Joplin. My girl, you don't know, she's Texas. I and my dad's name is Bobby, okay? That's my point. She is Texas. She is the epitome of female rocker, if you ask me. My opinion, I'm not a professional. I've had a little experience. That's all. But, there actually are modern female rock leaders, though, okay? Lizzie Hale, Amy Lee, Haley Williams, Taylor Momsen. Come on. Yeah, Cindy Lou Who. They just don't always get the same mainstream push. Another factor is instruments. Boys are still more likely to be encouraged to pick up guitars and drums at a young age. You know it's true. Look, it may not be about talent or interest, but access, exposure, and how scenes historically formed. As more women become producers, guitarists, and headliners, band leaders, the landscape continues to change. Now, comments for this one. It's an eternal question. Where are the women? They get written off. I dated a notable metal musician in my early 20s, and he asked me why there were so few women in rock music. I tried to articulate to him that I included myself as I am a rock musician, are often pushed out of the scene in favor of male acts. I hate to say it, but I've seen that too. It's not that female rock artists or bands don't exist, they're underbooked, underpromoted, and often sexually harassed by the man or male bands and artists they tour with or that act as producers, managers, etc. You know, I haven't been in that scene, but we've heard the stories, right? Local scenes can be gate kept by who is already playing shows together, too. Touring culture historically has been very male dominated, which can make it harder for new female artists to enter those networks. Many female musicians also talk about needing to provide or prove themselves repeatedly in ways male musicians don't have to do. And I think we know that. So, OP responds, out of curiosity, where is your scene at? And the commenter said, I don't want to reveal a specific location, but this was in a Midwestern city in US near where I grew up with a population around 75,000. And the original poster responds again, okie dokie, thank you for background info. That's kind of a little bit more interesting because it didn't seem that way here in that kind of situation in this area, but it's different everywhere. I'm sure it's different across the pond too. All right. Second comment here. I feel like there are a lot of relevant female rock artists out there today. You could even make the argument that they are more relevant than male fronted bands. Granted, this is in the category of indie rock, as rock itself hasn't had mainstream relevance in quite some time. Okay, I can understand this point. I may not agree completely, but indie rock has actually become one of the biggest spaces where female artists thrive. It's not pop. Artists like St. Vincent and Courtney Barnett and are respected not just as singers, but as songwriters and guitarists. The revival of pop punk sounds in younger artists also shows rock influence coming back through different lanes. Rock may not dominate charts the way it did in the 80s and the 90s, but the culture is still evolving. All right, there was an edit to this. Feminist punk movements like Riot Girl in the 90s helped create space for women in punk and alternative scenes. True. Very, very true. I think I missed out on that one. Yeah, I did. That's okay. All right. Last comment, or third comment, pardon me. If you are a woman trying to break through it into the rock scene, you are going to face more difficulty at pretty much every step, right down to the very beginning. Getting interested in rock music, it's marketed towards mostly men, boys. And women who do show an interest are often met with people telling them that's not girl music or that girls can't play guitar. I think we've already proven that point is wrong. Marketing and early exposure matter, right? Kids often pursue instruments they see role models playing. When someone sees a guitarist or drummer that looks like them, it changes what they imagine possible. I mean, I know when I used to listen to music, it was when I got to the females, it was mostly country music that I was listening to. Not a big pop fan. There is some. I mean, Beyonce's got her fan for some reason. But it was always about the men of rock. So nowadays, when the visibility of women in rock bands is so much more important, I think. And, well, I mean, so much more visible, right? All right, fourth comment for this one. I hear you. It seems like maybe there would have been more of a trend shift in rock metal if there were actually mainstream anymore. So the 90s actually had a huge wave of women in alternative rock. Artists like PJ Harvey, Liz Phair, Veruca Salt, Garbage, and Hole helped define that era. Many of those artists were writing their own material and shaping their band's sounds. Alrighty. I think, oh wait, I think I moved it. Yep, didn't mean to. I think this is pretty accurate. I also tend to take the perspective that we should celebrate the women in rock that do exist. Agreed. Rather than always decrying that there are so few. I agree. That's a good point. The history of rock is full of women who helped shape the genre, even if they weren't always given equal recognition. Celebrating those artists can inspire the next generation of musicians, y'all. You know it's true. All right, we're going to take our little break. I'm still keeping that part. If you don't mind, take a listen to this really kick-ass song that I made myself. I'll be right back.
She came from the quiet storms, built a fire from the ground, turned a whisper to a warning. Now her voice shakes the town. Every setback was a lesson. Every doubt became a key, unlocking something bigger. That's the rise of Boss B. When the lights go low, her vision hits high. She built a whole damn network off a promise and a try. Every sunrise, every moment, she's stacking legacy. This ain't just a channel, this is BBTV. Boss B rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel road to the neon dream, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss B rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it. She's the queen of the comeback, the storm in the stream, crafting stories out of heartbeats, making visions out of dreams. Got thunder in the hustle, got a voice that cuts clean. Every mic she touches turns to power unseen. So let burgers spin the numbers, let the views rise slow or fast. Boss Beat doesn't measure wins by echoes of the past. This moment is a pivot, this season's history. Bow down to the founder of the BBTV dynasty. Boss B rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel roads to the neon dream, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss B rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it. She's got fire in the head, it's got truth in the frame, got a heart that won't retire and a gift you can't name. Every loop, every letter, every dream she sets free, it's a love note to the world sign. Boss B. And the world keeps watching as the numbers climb, but she's counting all the moments, not the dollar signs. From the late night grind to the daylight scene, she's building something bigger than the algorithm's dream. Boss B rising, BBTV shining. Her story's rewriting, a legacy in real time. Boss B rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel roads to the neon dream, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss B rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it. BBTV, where the stories breathe. BBTV, where the dreamers believe. Boss B rising, watch her take her place. This is BBTV, this is her grace.
All right, y'all. We are back. We are back. Thank you for the break. Much needed. If y'all know anything about me, you gotta know I got a dog with an old man bladder. That's all it is. And here he goes, moving around again. He just got up here to settle down. For real, dude. Chill. All righty. Now then, back to and I don't even care today. Found the quote is the greatest female rock singer of all time based on their lyrics and singing and why. Now, the OP offers a response here, and I'll tell you, the commenters, they didn't understand the assignment, but we're going to talk about it anyway. OP response is the late Tina Turner because she was more than just a singer. Amen, sis. She smashed boundaries for both female and black artists. Turner's voice spelled liberation even more potentially, or pardon me, potently than her moves. That's saying a lot, don't you think? Listen, Tina Turner rebuilt her entire career in her 40s after leaving Ike. That comeback is one of the greatest in music history. Y'all need to go watch that short because it's going off like crazy right now. And I'm telling you, it's one of my better ones, okay? Simply the best. And yes, she was. Her stage energy changed what a female performer could look like in rock. She didn't just sing the songs, she commanded the stage. Songs like Proud Mary and What's Love Got to Do with It, that shows both sides of her voice, raw power and emotional storytelling. Look, when people talk about the greatest, it's usually comes down to three things: voice, impact, and staying power. Tina checks all three boxes 10 times, right? She was amazing. She was absolutely amazing. So I did grab some comments from that one. First one, there are some really good ones, but as soon as I saw Ann Wilson sing Stairway to Heaven in front of Led Zeppelin, it no longer was a competition to me. Okay, you know what? That Kennedy Center performance is legendary. Robert Plant was visibly emotional hearing his song sung that way. Ann Wilson's vocal control and power are often compared to the greatest male rock singers. Seriously. So, second comment had a list for us. Bjork, heck yes. Chrissy Hind, absolutely. Kate Bush, Tori Amos, although I would think she was more pop, I would agree. I love Tori Amos's voice. Debbie Harry, Ann Wilson, Joni Mitchell, Annie Clark, Annie Lennox. Yes, Annie Lennox. See, that one right there gets me right there. I love Annie Lennox. There's just Annie, Annie Lennox. Yeah. That list shows how many different in new wave pushed the boundaries of what rock and experimental music could sound like. Debbie Harry helped define the sound and style of new wave with Blondie. And might I add, she did help on the rap section a little bit. Ha ha ha. Look, third comment we have here, my favorite is Chrissy Hind. Mine too, honey, mine too. Based on lyrics and voice. This one understood the assignment. Based on lyrics and voice with a punk edge. Pure voice favorite is Ann Wilson. See? Chrissy Hind, okay, wrote many of the Pretenders' biggest songs and built the band around her songwriting. Now, her voice has that raw, slightly gritty tone that fits rock perfectly. And I mean, come on, she's beautiful, beautiful, right? Okay, fourth comment. Amy Lee sings like an angel, and in vocals, most people take shortcuts or are lazy. She never did that. Gives it her all and writes some beautiful songs. Amen. Amen. Amy Lee brought classical influence into modern rock and metal vocals. Evanescence proved that a female-fronted rock band could dominate charts in 2000s. And let me tell you, She's one of my favorites. So the fifth comment says, I have seen Hart 14 times and Ann Wilson will always be the best vocalist. However, based on the question, this one understood. I think Tina Turner will take the slight edge on this one. Agreed. Her helping to write the lyrics back in the day and what she did before she left, that woman was a badass. Amen, right? Ann Wilson is often ranked among the greatest vocalists in rock, regardless of gender. Okay, Tina Turner's story of survival and reinvention adds another layer to her legacy, right? All right, sixth comment. Dolores O'Riordan. Her range went from deep bass all the way to yodeling lyrics, sometimes painful, and mostly all from her own experiences. And her energy during live shows never disappointed. Amen. Dolores O'Riordan's voice was instantly recognizable. That Irish tone and emotional intensity. Oh my gosh. And I love my Irish lineage. So heck yeah. So songs like Zombie, okay, showed rock music could also carry political and social messages without going too overboard, right? OP responded to that one. So lucky I got to see her one time. I went for the opening act, Cracker, and I walked out a full-fledged Cranberries fan. Dolores was the real thing on a live stage, man. Absolutely. Comment and response. That's awesome. Love when that happens by accident. My favorite Cranberries show was Up Against the Rail, the Fillmore, Denver, I think in 2000. Can still remember seeing the vein in her neck bulging out during Ridiculous Thoughts. Who doesn't know that vein, right? One thing that stands out in this discussion is how many different types of voices define rock. Powerhouse singers like Ann Wilson, storytellers like Chrissy Hine, emotional stylists like Dolores O'Riordan, and performers like Tina Turner. They changed the entire stage presence of rock music in incredibly and beautifully, if you ask me. But I'm a woman, so of course I'm a little bit biased. I'm allowed to be. This is my show. Alrighty, next. We have some lists here for you. Who are some women who could have and should have been the first women inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? This list I've edited for my own pleasure as well. And we're just going to put them out there, okay? Sister Rosetta Tharpe. Woman. The godmother of rock and roll. She was shredding electric guitars in the 40s before rock even had a name. Chuck Berry, Elvis, Little Richard all came after this style she helped pioneer. Big Mama Thornton. Original voice of Hound Dog. Elvis made it famous, but she recorded it first. Her blues delivery shaped the sound that early rock singers copied. Ella Fitzgerald, one of the most technically gifted voices ever recorded. Okay. Yes, she's one of my favorite. Her vocal phrasing influenced generations of singers. Even though she's considered jazz, rock vocalists studied her timing and phrasing. Gladys Knight, a soul powerhouse whose voice helped define R&B crossover into mainstream pop and rock radio. Look, her influence, it stretches across soul, pop, and early rock era radio. Billie Holiday turned emotion into storytelling. Her vocal style changed how singers delivered lyrics. Look, she proved that interpretation of a lyric could be just as powerful as the melody. It's true. Look, Etta James, baby. One of the rawest blues and soul voices ever recorded. Bridged blues, rock, and R&B. Yes. Songs like At Last and Tell Mama influenced countless rock vocalists. Ask anybody. Mahalia Jackson, the queen of gospel, her power and delivery shaped the emotional backbone of early rock vocals. Look, gospel call and response became a major building block of rock performance. It really did. Laverne Baker, a 1950s R&B star whose sound fed directly into the birth of rock and roll. Look, her recordings were part of the rhythm and blues explosion that turned into rock and roll. Wanda Jackson, often called the Queen of Rockabilly, one of the first women fronting a rock band. Look, Elvis himself encouraged her to switch from country to rockabilly. It's true. Ruth Brown. Atlantic Records was once called the house that Ruth built. It's true. It's so true. Her hits helped shape early R&B and rock. Look, without Ruth Brown's success, Atlantic may not have become a powerhouse label. Dinah Washington, a blues and jazz stylist whose phrasing influenced early soul and rock vocalists. Many early rock singers borrowed her emotional vocal style. When people talk about the birth of rock and roll, they often name male artists first, but many of the musical foundations they came from women in blues and gospel and R&B. The Rock Hall sometimes recognizes influence decades later, but history shows these women were already shopping or shaping the sound long before the genre had a name. You know that stuff's true. All right. There are more songs. This is true. Think about it. I got a list for you. There are more songs about women than there are women in rock. Look, started by just adding songs as I came across them. Then I wrote a script. This is a list from Reddit and Mine Incorporated. Um, Wrote a script that searched the top 1,000 female names on Spotify and limited the results to artists that appeared at least 5 times in my 5 year streaming history. Talking. Okay. So, pardon me, rock music has always written about women. There have been muses, lovers, heartbreak, but historically, fewer women were actually in the bands creating music. This shows how women shaped rock culture both as inspiration and eventually as creators. Let's see, I bookended the playlist with two fitting titles by Green Day. Okay. What's Her Name by Green Day? Aberdeen. Yeah. Cage the Elephant. Allison by Elvis Costello. Allison by the Pixies. Angie, the Rolling Stones. Arabella, Arctic Monkeys. Black Betty by Ram Jam. Brandy, Looking Glass. Cordelia, the Tragically Hip. Daria, Cake. Deborah, Beck. Evelyn, the Tragically Hip. Felicia, the Constellations. Gabrielle, Ween. Hazel, Bob Dylan. Henrietta, the Fratellis. I don't know what that is. I don't think I've heard them before. Helena, My Chemical Romance. Iris, the Goo Goo Dolls. Yeah. Kim by Eminem. We know what that's about. Jacqueline, Franz Ferdinand. Jenny, the Mountain Goats. Jessica, the Allman Brothers Band. Jolene by Dolly Parton and Jolene by Cake. Josie, Blink 182. Layla, Derek and the Dominoes, and Layla by Eric Clapton. We know that. Look, Lola, the Kinks. Lydia, Highly Suspect. Molly, Lil Dicky. Brendan, Yuri. Polly, Nirvana. Ramona, the Smashing Pumpkins. Rihanna, or Rhiannon, I guess, is Fleetwood Mac. Rio, Duran Duran. Rosemary by the Deftones. Roxanne, The Police. Ruby, Kaiser Chiefs. Suzanne, Weezer. Sweet Caroline, Neil Diamond. Valentina, Public Service Broadcasting. Valerie, Amy Winehouse. Veronica, Red Hot Chili Peppers. Victoria, The Kinks. She, Green Day. Look, rock has always been full of songs about women, but over time, the industry slowly shifted to include more women, actually writing and performing those. Sorry, it's not supposed to do that. Sorry. Performing those songs is what I was trying to say. Today, many female artists are not just muses, they're band leaders, producers, and songwriters, and they're shaping the genre. Now, let's see. Sorry. I know why it's taking me so long to find that. Alrighty. Now, let me see if I can get this back up in here. Yep. There we go. So, there are more songs about women than there are women in rock. It's true. And it's always going to be that way. And that's okay. Because, you know what? I don't mind being Muse. There's a song out there that's got my name on it. Y'all know that? Yeah. No, I am not B. My name doesn't even start with a B. It starts with a C. My name is Charlene. Anthony Hamilton has a song called Charlene. And you know what? The song is mine. He wrote it for me. I don't care what y'all think. Look, that's going to end it for us today. But this right here is what makes conversations like this so much fun for me. Because once you start digging into music history, you realize pretty quickly that the story we usually hear isn't always the full one. There's voices, artists, and pioneers who shaped the sound of rock long before the spotlight ever found them. And the truth is, a lot of people, those voices belong to women. From the early blues and gospel singers who helped build the emotional backbone of rock, to the powerhouse vocalists and band leaders who carried the genre into new generations. The influence has always been there, even if the recognition didn't always show up at the same time. That's part of what makes rock history so fascinating. The deeper you look, the more connections you find. Now, of course, this conversation is far from finished because I love my music, and also because if there's one thing music fans love doing, it's arguing about music history. So I want to hear from you. Who do you think deserves more recognition in rock history? Who would you put on the list of the greatest female rock vocalists? And you know what? Who do you think changed the game in ways people don't think or don't talk about? Drop it in the comments for me, okay? Because we're going to keep this conversation going. If you enjoyed today's episode of Ask a Beat, make sure you like the video, please. Subscribe. I would love to have you in this community. And if you're new here, stick around because we've always got more music stories, discussions, and deep dives coming your way. Thanks for hanging out with me, you guys. And as always, get over there, see my friends in Tuber Chat. Y'all know I love ya, and I will buzz you later. See you soon.
I want to take a minute to shout out Tuber Chat. If you're a creator who's tired of surface level advice, and actually wants to understand how YouTube works, that's the space. It's real conversations with real creators who are in the trenches building channels, testing ideas. No posturing, no gatekeeping, no fake guru energy, just people sharing what's working, what isn't, and why. If you're serious about growing, learning, and not doing this alone, check out Tuber Chat. The link is in the description. If you're enjoying this show, subscribing is the easiest way to support what's being built here on BBTV. You'll see the join button right next to subscribe. No pressure, no expectations, just an option for people who want to support the channel in a real way. We're live every day at 3 p.m. Central now. And don't worry, we didn't change the heat, just the clock. And if you've got a story you want to share, send it in. Anonymous is always fine.
A boss be right.